Let's add a page to our app and set up routes so we can visit that page. I'll also show you some fancy pants code splitting Quasar gives us by default. We'll start by jumping into Source, Pages, and let's create a new file in there called friendspage.view. This can be a place where we have a list of friends. We'll add the script tag, and we'll add a template tag. And inside of the template, we're going to add the Q-page component. This just makes a page that sits really nicely inside of our layout. And you can also add some padding there, which is kind of helpful. Now we can say here, friends page, just to check if that's working. So when all the routes are set up, we've got some sort of an indication. Next, we're going to need a route that points to this page. So let's open up our file browser and jump into our router folder and then routes. Now I'm going to change the layout just slightly here, just so we can see what's going on a bit clearer. Now let's have a look at the default setup here. If we go to /, we're going to get the layout component, our main layout. And then inside of there, we have children routes. And if you go to /nothing, we serve up the index page. So that's why we've got /nothing here, and then the index page gets served up. So how about we go ahead and just copy what we've got there and say, if you go to /friends, we'll go straight to the friends page. That's the component that we just built. So now let's come up here and say /friends. And there we go. That's the friends page that we just created. Also, notice that the way we import this component is slightly different to what you might be used to. What you might be used to is something like this. Friends page, and then you import it at the top of the file, something like that, from pages/friends page. Now this is going to work as well. However, when we use a function like you see here, Vite is automatically going to do code splitting behind the scenes. So that basically means, in a nutshell, this component isn't going to be loaded until it's needed. So as soon as this routes file gets hit, any component that's imported this way, the sort of classic way that we usually import components, that is not going to be code split. In other words, we can end up with a large file size if our app is big. But by doing this kind of an import, we're breaking our app up into smaller chunks, and those components are only being imported when they're needed. They're a lower priority, which means that our app is going to run a bit faster. At least on the initial page load, it will run faster. If you look at the links attached to this video, there's actually a section on the Quasar docs that goes a little bit deeper into how all of that works. And this is called code splitting. So I just wanted to point out why we're using this way of importing that might look a bit different to what you're used to. So let's bring that back to how it was. Save it, and I'll just do a refresh here to check everything's working. And let's just have a quick look at how we might pass through some route params. This isn't going to be a view router course, but route params are a pretty important feature, so I thought I'd just quickly show you how we can do it in Quasar. Let's have a route that receives a friends list ID. So imagine we've got a list of friends, and in order to track that, we've got friends lists. So how about friends list ID? And if we add the colon here, that's now going to be dynamic. So we can pass through, for example, a random string of numbers. And if I save that, this is still going to work. So we're taking in this parameter, but let's go ahead and do something with it. So what we can do is say props is equal to true. And that means that this parameter is going to be passed down to this component as a prop. So in other words, friends page gets a prop of friends list ID. I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's create a little bit more room here so that we can have them side by side. And we'll come up, change this to script setup, and add some props in there. Define props, friends list ID. Let's make this required, and we'll give it a type equal to string. So let's go ahead and make sure these two files are saved and see if we can do something with this route parameter. Friends page, spit it out there. And now we can see we get friends page and then also the route parameter that was passed through here. So let's change that to a 1 to check if it works. And it does. So now, as you can imagine, this could be the ID of a friends list. And when we land on this page, it fetches all of the friends from the list with that ID. Okay, I'm going to reverse that for now though, just to simplify our app. And we'll go back to our /friends route. Now, the last thing I want to do is show you history mode. By default, our routing uses something called hash mode, and that's where we get this little hash in our route. The good thing about hash mode is that it's very easy to deploy. So you don't have to do any extra configuration if you want to deploy it to something like Netlify or Vercel, or if you're using a custom Nginx config, it's very easy to set up an app that uses hash mode. But if you're like me and you're a little bit persnickety, you might want a route that looks a bit prettier, like this. But notice that doesn't work by default. So if you want to get rid of the hash, we have to use something called history mode. And to do that, I'm going to cross out of these two windows and jump into our Quasar configuration file, quasar.config.js. This file basically allows us to configure Quasar in many, many ways and tap into certain things, like in this example, the hash versus history mode for our routes. So let's scroll down a little bit here, and we'll find a section called View Router Mode. We're going to change that from hash to history. Save it, and there you have it. Now we get these nice, clean routes in our app. Again, just be aware that you have to do a little bit of extra work deploying. So if you're new to deploying Vue apps, then you might want to make sure that you're using hash mode, just so when you put this on Netlify or Vercel or whatever you decide to use, it's going to work without any extra configuration. But I must say there are some very good resources that show you how to deploy an app in history mode if you do want to go down that avenue. And that's it. You now know how to route to pages and how to send route params as props so they can be used on that page. See you in the next video.